With all of our movie news, like the breaking news out of the way, it is now time to jump right into Review Wednesday.
It stinks.
You guys, Review Wednesday is here. Review Wednesday is here. As you know, every Wednesday we always review a brand new film that just came out. This particular film that just came out is 2020 Disney's version of Mulan. That's the live action version of Mulan. It just came out on Disney Plus. Yes, I paid the $30 to essentially not buy the movie. It's a $30 rental that lasts for 3 months. I'm all for it. Why not? Of course. There are some aspects to this film that I liked. I think there were more aspects to this film that I did not enjoy. Right off the gate, the big question that everybody is asking, is it worth the $30 to rent this movie? Cordy, is it worth $30 to rent Mulan for 3 months?
You're asking somebody with like a really Scottish heritage. I think if it was bundled with other films, then yes. It's really hard when there's such little choice at the moment. As you said, there are only sort of 3 films out at the moment. So I feel like we've stepped back in time to an era when, you only had so much choice in blockbusters.
Hey, I've got a nickel. Can
and
I
now,
go see a movie? See?
Yeah, it's a little bit like that. Maybe we are in a second Great Depression where, our only escapism is a limited series of options.
It's true.
And I think that's actually apt because this film's quite like colourful. I feel like they were trying to lean into that sort of entertaining pabulum spectacle thing. Yeah. Oh man, I might save my judgment for the end, but I'm Scottish by nature, so probably no.
I love the qualifier. You're Scottish by nature, but probably no. I would have to agree with you, Cordy. I would not recommend. And see, that's the thing. Like, I'm trying to champion the cause here.
It's not a terrible movie, but when you say it that way, it's like, well, would I have paid $30 to see it in a theater? I know.
I mean, I would have for the.
I might have paid $15 New Zealand to see it at a theater. Am I paying $30? Is that $30 US?
30. Yeah,
it's quite a lot
US,
of dollars.
Yeah.
With the exchange rate, that's a lot of dollars. That's a no for me.
Yeah, yeah. What's that? 40 New Zealand dollars? Something.
Yeah, something like that.
Yeah.
Like, I'll need to check the exchange rate, but yeah, it's
it's
a bit.
Here's the thing, you guys. I've been trying to champion this movie, and even before I saw it, before it came out, because here's the thing: Disney is not as wealthy as we all like to give them credit for. That being said, I mean, they're going to be fine. They're going to be okay. They're not in the same position as AMC theaters. They're not even in the same position as the company that I work for my day job. So in the long run, Disney will be just fine. That being said, this type of format, the idea that, VOD premium access, where you're paying 30, I mean, you would pay 20 in New York City. I don't know, Cordy, what movie tickets are like in New Zealand right now, but in New York City, you pay $20 for a movie ticket, bare minimum, sometimes more. I would be paying $20 to go see this anyway, and I probably would have. So paying $30 to see it as many times as I want in my home for the next 3 months until it gets released to everybody on Disney Plus. I'm actually okay with that. I'm totally fine with that. It's a business model that we're not familiar with yet. It's a business model that strikes it rubs a lot of people the wrong way, but it's something that in the long run, I mean, depending on how long this pandemic is going to last, this could be the way to save film. It's at least in the way that we've known it before. So I've been a huge champion of this cause. But
a school account or something, it would be brilliant, right? So, or some sort of community collective thing. So you have a listening party, and you get a bunch of people along to your house or whatever or to sign up and watch the film. Like it's brilliant for classrooms, for
Yeah,
example,
exactly.
rather than having to like invest in a physical when I was real small VHS, when I was less smaller DVD, right? And then it sits there moldering on your shelf.
Yeah.
How cool would it be to get a subscription? Say, here you go, class. Here's the code. Here's the password. Go watch the thing. I mean, it's brilliant for classrooms. It's brilliant for anything like that. So that's probably where I'd see the subscription model really being awesome. And to that extent, then yes, it could potentially open up a whole lot of interesting and new films for the masses.
I agree. I agree. But in this particular case, I cannot recommend. I just can't recommend paying the $30 to go see it. Anyway, we can hash this out all that we want, but we actually want to talk about the movie. Like, let's review the movie. If you haven't seen it, we're not going to give away spoiler. I mean, it's a remake. Like, it's the same
I'm
exact
going to talk
movie.
about the cinematography.
Yeah,
So yeah,
right.
it's like we're revealing spoilers for movies that already exist.
I mean, you already know the basic premise. The emperor of China is in his life is in danger. The empire is in danger. Every like, I guess the oldest male or the most able and willing male from every family in the province needs to come and fight on the emperor's behalf. Mulan's family doesn't have, or rather, the father, he's an older gentleman. He physically is not able to fight. He's going to die. Everybody knows he's going to die in battle. Mulan puts the battle armor on and rushes off to war under the guise of, I'm a boy. Instead. So, and then she goes off and has her own adventures and blah, blah, blah. Whatever. You've seen the movie back in 1999. Let's talk about this film. And we're going to start off with acting. Cordy, the acting to me wasn't terrible. It definitely left something to be desired. I first noticed how poor the acting was. There's a sequence when Mulan is in battle, she's fighting. I think it's right when she is like noticing her chi, when she starts allowing her her energy to start fighting, not for her but kind of with her, in conjunction of who she is or whatever. And they do not do a very good job at explaining why the chi is important, but we'll move into that in a minute. There's the shot of the actor who's playing Mulan when she's kind of like doing this weird barrel roll mid-air. The camera zooms in on her face and she's completely flat. She could be staring at a wall thinking about dogs, or she could be in the middle of this intense action battle and the look on her face is exactly the same.
So I have a feeling I know why the lead is emoting strangely, and I feel like she's been told to represent something, a masculine character projection and a feminine character projection, and the feminine character projection is meant to be this meek, understated, quiet voiced person. But the problem is that when she's coming into her own as a fighting character, she still retains some of that direction, and that maybe is why it's like, why is she not emoting? Oh, because she's meant to be a chick now. That's not good directing.
No,
It's not
no.
good acting either.
Like, I keep going back to in terms of like a woman fighting like a man in the movie Atomic Blonde with what's her name?
Oh, that's so good, man. That's such a good. Yes, such a good.
Shoot, what's her name? Atomic Blonde lady. What? You know who I'm talking about? Shoot.
I'm just gonna leave you hanging.
I know everybody knows. Let me know in the comment section below because I can't think of her name. Anyway, Atomic Blonde lady. She played Furiosa. I'm just gonna call her Furiosa. So Furiosa on the set of Atomic Blonde. Charlize Theron. There it is. Got it.
See, you got there in the
I'm
end.
there. So Charlize Theron
Don't
on
need
the
my
set
mind.
of Atomic Blonde was very adamant about saying a woman should not fight like a man. A woman should fight like a woman because they have their own strengths, they have their own weaknesses, and when you know which is which, you can like shy away from your weaknesses and play into your strengths and fight in a way that is purely unique and advantageous for you. And I thought that was brilliant. I never stopped to think about that before, but I was like, yeah, that's completely right. And in this movie, exactly as you say, like, to have someone force themselves to fight in a way that is not natural for their body to fight that way, it seems counterintuitive. It seems counterintuitive. And as you say, that kind of informs the acting a little bit. And across the board, there was only one actor that I actually liked their performance, and that was Donnie Yen. I liked Donnie Yen in the movie. That was it.
Oof. Yeah, I think my main issue was to do with tone. This has nothing to do with accents, but this is to do with the register in which the actors are speaking, and that shifts like crazy. And whether that's because when they're referencing the Disney bits of the movie, when they're calling out certain lines, for example, as a sort of hat tip to the 1998 animated movie, I feel like the tone goes like way more casual, more American, chatty, kidsy.
Yep.
And then there are other parts where messengers or other military characters are speaking in this very high kind of formal register. And it's just strange.
Yeah.
It's very jarring sometimes.
Well, also, one of the other things that I noticed that happens a lot is everyone has a different accent. Some people have heavy Chinese accents. Some people have American accents. And if this is all taking place in the same universe, shouldn't there be some kind of level of coherency?
I don't know. I mean, you see a lot of kind of different accents and different class levels of accents in Chinese cinema anyway. So
Okay.
I figured it was just kind of the English speaking version of that. Like, oh, these are soldiers. Like they speak a slightly, with a different accent. It's less.
fair.
But yeah,
That's fair.
it's interesting.
You-
So
make a great
so
point.
Hua Mulan, the films come from a tradition of Chinese opera, and I wonder if some of the older actors are thinking of the Chinese
could be.
opera
Yeah.
origins, which explains the fight scenes too, and maybe that's why they're going for this interesting formal register, and then maybe the younger actors are not
Right.
as
Yeah.
clued into
I can see
that,
that.
and that's why there's just this generational, I don't know.
Anyway, guys, we could rehash, the acting all day, every day, and, cover every single aspect of what it is that the actors are supposed to do and what they did. At the end of the day, I think it's fair. It wasn't the worst acting I've ever seen, but it was also kind of lackluster. The emotion was left out. They didn't get me. As actors, their emoting style didn't make me connect with any of the characters. And for all those reasons, I'm giving acting a 10 out of 20. Cordy, do you think 10 out of 20 is fair?
I might be slightly more generous. There are a couple more characters that I found interesting, but they were more interesting as characters or character designs, I guess. Yeah, Don Yen was awesome.
Donnie Yen was
really
great. He was my
He
redeeming.
made me believe in that film all over again when he was back. I'm like, yes, that's right. I've come home to the part of the movie I like.
Also, I need to point this out in terms of acting. First of all, Jet Li was in the movie, which it took me a while to realize, the Emperor is Jet Li? What? There was some horrible ADR. Terrible ADR over Jet Li's mouth movements. Clearly, it was not Jet Li speaking, and the way the way the voice actor was emoting and portraying the Emperor's voice was not the same way Jet Li was portraying his voice in terms of his facial
Oh, they
acting.
should have just let Jet Li speak. I was wondering what was going on there, and I was because that was very strange. It was
Yeah.
like a video game
It was
voice
really
acting,
bad.
wasn't it?
It was really bad. It was really bad. Anyway, so there's that. Let's move on to directing. So the directing of the film, as we kind of touched on earlier, Cordy touched on this. There were some huge tone issues. There were some major tone shifts that were not congruent with each other. Cordy and I were talking before the show started, and was saying that it was like there was two different films being mashed into one, and I very much agree with that. I rarely have a problem with CGI. Like, okay, you want to use CGI, cool. You want to use green screen, cool. But the use of green screen and the use of CGI in this film were definitely subpar, especially on a Disney budget. They spent $200 million making this movie. That's the same amount of money as the first Avengers film. That's the same
Yeah,
amount.
you can get animating rabbits right, guys.
Yeah, I mean, we can see how to do CGI correctly. Lucasfilm they're okay doing it. I think Weta Workshop does CGI the best. But Marvel has been doing CGI pretty well. There's no reason that Disney, because it's all in the same, like Lucasfilm and Marvel and Disney, it's all in the same house together. You want to outsource to Weta, which I would actually very much appreciate. You can do that as well. There's so much technology to show how to do it correctly, and they did not do it very well. This movie has a really bad pacing problem, an extremely bad pacing problem. They don't let any of the moments breathe. You want to connect with these characters on an emotional level, and you can't because it's time for the next thing. And
Yeah, the third act in particular had these like unnecessary multiple escalations, and including ones like that you feel, oh, that would have been emotionally hit harder if it was at the nadir of the character's arc. Like, difficulties that would have been more emotionally stirring if they'd been piled on when Hua Mulan's at her like lowest point. That would have been more effective to me than like, oh, let's just save them for later in the middle of an action sequence to pointlessly up the stakes. Write a better fight scene.
right, yes.
Just write a better fight
Oh.
scene. Don't add these like these silly messy things, right? It's just fiddly. But then again, I think a lot of the directing fluffs come from studio pressure. I think that it's a narrative pressure. You have the pressure of the Disney plot points and trying to like tick off certain iconic moments or scenes or bits of imagery, and then the other film, and it's a real film. I think that this film is cribbing heavily from the 2009 Chinese Ballad of Hua Mulan, especially in the military scenes, like the costuming and some of the military training scenes are really familiar, and I think there's a lot of love for that film.
Right.
But they don't mesh together, and by insisting that you sort of tick off all of the iconic points from either film, you kind of just get this hot mess.
Yeah,
And it's sad because most of those films are good and inspiring, and they deserve to be like known. But together, it's just a bad compromise.
I think you put it best. It's a bad compromise, and it's not the worst directing I've ever seen. It was, given the script, given the material, given the time constraints, okay, it was fine. But in the end, I had to go with an 11 out of 20 for directing.
There are some good visual call-outs, so there are some really nice uses of visual symbolism, and the parts of the film that hang together the best are also the parts that like make use of those narrative callbacks. So you have like the parallels between Hua Mulan is like wearing a leather binder, and she's bracing herself, and then her father has a strap, leather straps, and a splint on his leg, and he binds that up and girds himself, and in both cases it's sort of both a crutch for them and it is also holding them back. So
Right,
there's
yeah.
nice pieces of, and the use of the Phoenix imagery instead of Chris Tucker as the dragon, because even in 1998 I knew Chris Tucker as the dragon was
Eddie
just
Murphy. Eddie Murphy.
sorry, Eddie Murphy as a dragon. Oh, shame on dishonor on me, dishonor on my count. But yeah, no, it's like that the use of a dragon, which is this like very phallic masculine house imagery, replacing it by the phoenix, which is the archetypal kind of yin symbol. I'm into that. It's way more feminist to have it be the phoenix, the feminine power symbol, as the family ancestral symbol. It makes like a bunch more sense for a bunch more reasons.
True.
And then they called forward to that. So the imperial throne has a phoenix because it's part of the imperial imagery as well. So that was like there were some really nice kind of moments like that where there were just little subtle visual links. But again, those occurred in the parts of the film that were like thematically consistent, but where the film had to go and tell another story, it completely departed
We
from
could have had
that,
a
and so you
better-
lost.
and,
the cool,
this ties
you
into
could
the
have had
writing.
a real cool film.
It ties into the
Yeah.
writing, but like as you say, like we could have had these better themes. We could have had a better, a stronger emotional reaction to what was going on and to the characters themselves and their emotional journey. If we had those opportunities to connect with those moments a little bit better. As you say, the Phoenix, I like the on the nose symbology of like rising from the ashes. Like I thought that was really cool. I never stopped to think that, yeah, dragon is more masculine, whereas phoenix is more feminine. That's really cool. I think that's a better thematic symbology than having a dragon. There's a lot of this movie that could have worked so well, especially that they took out the music. Like it's not a musical. They use some of like the melodies from the songs as scoring techniques. But yeah, I don't know. 11 out of 20s. I feel that that's a fair score for directing. It wasn't terrible. It wasn't garbage. It had some really bad pacing problems. The tone, the theme was all over the place. And, CGI, like green screen was all, and, again, the ADR, working on the ADR was terrible. Anyway,
I feel like the instructions, like the directing instructions to the actors and to how we're going to do this scene and this scene, it's like very disjointed. So
Right.
that a lot of the other choices, like, again, music and storytelling choices, that's out of the director's control. But there's a lot that was, and it, really doesn't feel
it's
consistent.
only out of the director's
Like, I
control in
agree with
terms
that
of
score.
writing. The director can change the pacing of the film and also what he
Oh, the pacing's way off,
and what they choose to incorporate into the film. So like even if it's on the paper, let's take that scene out, or we need more because this scene isn't working the way it is. Let's do some rewrites, let's do some reshoots, and then insert that in. And that's where the director has creative control. And then she
Yep.
I feel needed a little bit more, sometimes by adding more footage to a film, it feels shorter because, you have a better understanding of what's going on. Anyway, we could.
So this film clocked in, like, at a sort of feature length. I think it would have been a great 90-minute film with a lot of the Disney stuff taken out, or it would have been a great, like, Disney length 90-minute film.
Sure.
So yeah.
But we got to move on to writing. We got to move on. The writing of the movie. This is kind of something that we've been talking a lot about so far. Yes, the themes were great. The central idea, the concept of the story. But where this particular film falls short is that this film relies on your knowledge and experience from the original film. It doesn't get into that emotional connection. It doesn't allow you to sit in a moment because those moments were not provided on the page. The dialogue was it was fine. It got the story across. It got the points across. There were a few moments that were pretty cool and interesting, but in terms of the actual storytelling, for me it fell really short. It fell really short of the mark because we didn't really get to know who Mulan was in her heart. We see at the very beginning of the movie what she does and that she kind of is a free spirit, but then beyond that, don't know anything about it. There's no character development almost at all. The sister, Mulan's younger sister, we know one defining characteristic about her. She's scared of spiders. That's it. That's all we know about her. So A, why is she even there? B, by the sister character being there, what does she contribute to the overall story? The mother and the father obviously are grounding forces for Mulan. And they should be giving us those stakes as to why her story is important. But all of that is left flat. It's left flat with the Emperor. Even the villains, we don't know why, really. I mean, okay, they kind of go into detail. Not detail. They skim over why the villains are doing what they're doing. It's a revenge plot. You did me wrong, so now I'm going to do you wrong. Da-da-da-da-da-da. Womp. Okay, that's a very generic thing, but can we humanize the villains a little bit more? The witch character who turns into a hawk and flies around, she doesn't seem to have much narrative purpose at all.
She's a great character design, but she's like a video game character, right?
I agree. Yeah.
I mean, I really liked watching her move. I liked the way she fought. I liked the way that her visuals like incorporated with her fighting style and so on. But like, I I really wanted her to get a moment in the sun in that film. I think it was taken away from her.
I feel there was a lot taken away from that character. There could have been so much more. The witch. I don't even know what the witch's name was. The witch could have been really cool. And like, there's a moment where she and Mulan connect, and she's like, "Who are you?" Well, I am whatever Mulan's male name was. I don't remember what it was. And she keeps saying, like, "Who are you? I know this is not who you are pretending. Or, like, I know you're pretending to be somebody else. Who are you?" That could have been an extremely powerful moment, but we were robbed of it because we were so... the filmmakers were so consumed with telling the rest of the story that we didn't get to stop and get an answer to that question, and or see Mulan figure it out for herself. At some point, she just kind of has this, veil lifted from her eyes and goes, "Oh, I should be myself. That's how I earn my chi. That's how I can fight with dignity." I guess I just created a new cheer. But I just felt so robbed, that the writing did not work for me on any level. Cordy, how was the writing for you?
I feel really conflicted because there's a huge sort of niche following of the 1998 Disney version of the film, and to a lot of us in our counterculture, it is a queer story. Or it has those camp undertones. When it was late 90s, we were starved for content.
Sure, yeah.
And down to the choice of name. So when the Disney version, she like fumbles and chooses the name Huaping, which is a pretty hilarious pun if you're Chinese. But and I think so that was kind of the emotional core of it, was this kind of almost this sex comedy. You have the gender comedy of the armed forces, and a lot of like some slapstick and things, and a lot of the campness was just sucked out of those out of that middle section. And I did miss that as a storytelling thing, because as a device, much like the singing is a powerful emotional device. So you're singing a girl with fighting for, and then suddenly the 4th Regiment is dead, was like a really strong emotional beat in the Disney version, which ironically, even though in the animated Disney version, and ironically in this film, even though you would think it would be like a bit more realistic because it's a live action film, the emotional beat isn't there because the singing and the silliness actually gave that contrast. So without the silliness, the story feels weaker. So the other way you can lean is to go really gritty, but they can't because it's a PG movie, right?
From a comedy perspective, it was from a comedy perspective.
But the comedy was kind of important, like even if it's dated. Well, that's what makes us connect.
Like, okay, it's lighthearted and silly and jovial, but that's what makes the audience connect to the characters on screen. It's I always say because you and I are both comedians, we're both improvisers. If you want to get somebody to like you, make them laugh. And that's how you connect with human beings, is through, lighthearted tone in nature. And that you're in. And we didn't have... There was very little likability amongst any of these characters, because I'm not saying that everybody needs to make you laugh. Definitely not. But the heart was removed because the personal connections just weren't there, right?
And it is like, the great trick of musicals is what people are thinking because they walk away and they sing about it, right? So if you don't have that, how are you going to tell that story?
I agree. I wholeheartedly agree. Anyway, guys, for all those reasons, I am going to give the writing a score of 8 out of 20. It was not very strong. The themes were awesome. And, as Cordy points out, the idea of the dual gender identity was something I'd never stopped to consider before. Like, that's actually a really cool theme. In as you say, in the counterculture that I never was a part of and never stopped to consider before. That's a great aspect to the story. They could have delved into that a little bit more. The idea of, taking on a role or pretending to be something that you're not for the greater good, I think is a really strong theme that, they kind of, I don't want to say they glossed over it because it's the main aspect of the movie, but it could have. They did not stick the landing. They did not stick the landing, and the meaning just was. It was lost. It was lost. So yeah, 8 out of 20 is what I'm giving the writing. Now for overall takeaway, the overall takeaway of the film, I think this was for me the strongest aspect, especially just in those points that I pointed out. That there are some really great themes there. Themes of pretending to be something that you're not, and then having to come to terms with who you are. Because, as Mr. Rogers taught every single one of us, you are the only person in the world that gets to be you. And by being you, you bring all of your own thoughts and ideas and expressions and experience to any given situation. Okay, maybe they may not be things that the situation needs in the moment, but there are going to be so many other situations and opportunities for you to contribute to any given thing. I thought that the themes of this movie, the general messages, were some of the most important parts of the film. Cordy, how do you feel about the takeaway or the themes or the life lessons that we can learn from this movie? Could they have been improved? Is there something else that you would have liked to have seen?
There's one moment that stuck with me, which is just it's a not an acting moment, but it is a character moment. So in the in both of the other Mulan movies I've referenced, I guess some power is taken away from the central character at the end. So the 2009 version goes through this historical PTSD take where Hua Mulan is really sick of war and retires to the countryside, and reunites with family pretty much because she's sick of the horrors of war. And the 1998 version, she becomes this meek, Disney character of, oh no, I should be with my family, and gets her happy ending, And this version is a moment of choice. The final moment is a moment of her maximum power, which is the emperor is coming beseeching her for a job, and you don't get the decision. And I love that because that is the moment of maximum power, right?
Yeah,
that is a great way to end a story. And I thought that message of that is the apex, that is the happy ending for the character, is she gets the choice. That's a really cool message. So I liked that theme very much.
Extremely powerful.
I did like seeing more female interactions, even though it was a little ham-fisted, but no, yeah, I agree. The messages were much more up to date. Mm-hmm. There's a good reason why you'd want to remake the Disney version. There are some culturally jarring things, or some stuff that's really dated, and this new movie definitely made that apparent. And so,
I agree.
A remake is fine.
Yeah.
So I agree with your score. I think we give it a good score for the messages it's putting across.
Yeah, and for all those reasons you just laid out, that's why we're giving the overall takeaway a 16 out of 20. This is definitely the highest score that we're giving any of the categories today, and I think it earned it. I definitely think that it earned it. In terms of, its themes and the things that it was trying to teach and updating the story. So let's move on to effectiveness. How effective was this movie? Did it stick the landing? Did it accomplish the things that the filmmakers wanted it to accomplish? I would argue, surprise, surprise, no. I don't think that it did. I think that in order for this movie to be effective in the way that they wanted it to be, they had to stick the landing, which they didn't. I like, Cordy, what you just pointed out in the overall takeaway, which is ending the film on a choice. Giving Mulan the choice instead of saying, hey, we love you, you're now going to be a part of our army or whatever. But giving her the choice, that's an idea that, especially in the time period of which this film is set, that was just not done towards a woman. That was just not done. And have the opportunities of redemption in that level, having the opportunities of understanding and acceptance in that time period, again, that was not done. And I think that is to the strength of the film in terms of the theme. But I don't think that for me, they didn't stick the landing because that emotionality wasn't there. For me, I keep saying emotionality and connecting with the characters, but that's what it all comes down to for me. If I don't identify with any of these characters, if I can't make a personal connection or feel what they're feeling in their moments of feels, then I can't gravitate to champion in their cause. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it's a story about community, so if you don't feel kinship with at least some of the characters, it's kind of failed in its purpose, right?
Yeah, I'd agree. And for those reasons, that's why I gave effectiveness a 7 out of 20. Not great, not a 0, because it was effective on some level, but for me it didn't even cross the halfway point. Cordy, do you agree or disagree with 7 out of 20 for how effective the film was?
You're harsh on these scores,
I
but
am.
no, it's probably fair. It's definitely not a pass.
All right, guys. So with all of our scores, a 10 out of 20, 11 out of 20, an 8 out of 20, 16 out of 20, and a 7 out of 20. That brings our overall score of our review of Mulan to...
Moses supposes his toes are roses, but Moses supposes erroneously.
But Moses, he noses, his toes aren't roses, as Moses supposes his toes to be.
That's right, a 52 out of 100. 52 out of 100. And you know, just that video clip of from that I just played from Singing in the Rain. All I can think of is exactly what they were just singing. You know, Moses supposes his toes are roses, but Moses supposes erroneously. But Moses noses his toes are roses, as Moses supposes his toes to be. It just makes me laugh. It makes me giggle. Has nothing to do with the movie, but yeah, 52 out of 100. Cordy, do you think that's fair? Not fair?
Oh man, yeah, you're a tough reviewer, aren't you?
I am.
I feel bad because a lot of love has gone into this film. I want to support female directors. I feel as though there's there was a lot of goodwill that went into making the film.
Well, nobody sets out to make a bad movie.
Nobody sets out to make a bad film.
Why would you?
I mean, just yeah. But on balance, like, can I say I was satisfied? No, not really. As I said, I want to go watch 2 other movies that are not this movie that are both very good. And you should definitely go watch the 2009 Ballad of Hua Mulan. It's a very good war story, and it's better acted.
So the question is, back to you guys. What did you think of this review? 52 out of 100. Do you think that's a bit harsh? I know Cordy thinks it's a bit harsh. I think it's right on the money. It's just barely over the halfway mark. This is not the kind of movie that I enjoyed. I enjoyed the 1999 animated film way better than I enjoyed it. Man, what is it with me and my English? Oh, I can't speak. Yeah, I enjoyed the animated film way better than I enjoyed this film. Where do you guys sit with Mulan? Did you love it? Did you hate it? Are you somewhere in between? Jump down to the comment section below and let me know your thoughts. And also definitely let me know how harsh you think I am about my my grading system. All right, guys, with all that done...